Good evening. I'm going to give it another minute or so. There was we had some trouble with the logging on to the Zoom meeting, so there are still people joining. All right, I will open up the meeting of the Wakefield Conservation Commission for February 21st. We'll take a roll call. Haley.
Here.
Jim.
You're muted, Jim.
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you now.
Okay, I'm here.
All right, Paul.
Yes, here.
Peter.
Yeah, he's here.
Yeah, I see Peter. Peter on mute. Teresa.
Here.
And I know Ken will not make it tonight. All right, first up is the approval of the minutes from February 7th. Any discussion? Any comments? And if not, would somebody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Haley,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes,
Paul,
Yes,
Peter. Peter, you're still muted.
seems to have vanished, Bob.
Yeah. Teresa,
Yes.
and I also vote to approve those minutes.
holy mackerel, there's a lot of people.
All right. First up is DEP 313-620 100 Hemlock Road. Is the applicant here?
Yes, good evening, Chairman. We're all here tonight. My name is Julie Barry. And good evening, the members of the commission. Thank you again for your time on this matter. I'm here with the rest of the team, same as we were at the last hearing, basically with David Conway here from Niche, myself, and Rob Schlein here from Prince Lobel to answer any legal issues. Vladimir Lubietsky is here from DRA Architects. We have David Warner here from Warner Larson. Basically Kevin Nigro and Joseph DeSantis, Anthony Lopresti, and Marco Zapalis are here from PMA Consultants. And if I've left anyone off, I'm sure they'll identify themselves at the appropriate time. If it's all right with you and with your permission, I'll just leap right into this.
Please do.
All right, thank you. So you may recall that at the last hearing, we spent some time discussing at the request of Ms. Davis, the conservation agent, the issue of the Zoning Board of Appeals review, or the application for review, and the Dover amendment. So since that time, or around that time, I can report an update as far as that goes, which is that, as expected and represented at the last hearing, an application was filed with the building inspector for a building permit for the project, which was duly denied because of the issue of zoning relief. So as we represented at the last hearing, an application for appeal to the Zoning Board of Appeals of the building inspector's denial was filed today. And that makes it in time for the Zoning Board of Appeals hearing on March 21st. This will put the issue before the board as to its review of the project as a whole, and whether there are reasonable conditions that it could apply under the Dover Amendment. So they will be looking at the project. And as to those particular aspects, bulk, height, dimensional type requirements that could be addressed as part of a zoning review. As expected, as we discussed, we would expect at the end of the day, after the Zoning Board of Appeals review, that they will be accordingly overturning the building inspector's decision with whatever reasonable conditions it might impose. So that's where that stands. The other issue that we discussed, or the other aspect of our hearing presentation last hearing, as you may recall, was to address the responses to comments that had been received from the town's peer reviewer, as well as certain members of the public. And a number of comments had not been received in time for us to get written responses to the commission and the agent and to the peer reviewer in time for everybody to have sort of enough time to consider these and respond appropriately. So we were going to continue with the response to those comments tonight, which will be handled in the first instance by either Kevin or Dave Conway, and then we will proceed to then go through the rest of the project and the comments that you may have. The only other point that I wanted to raise was that I believe the Traffic Advisory Committee of the Zoning Board of Appeals met today for, I believe, what's its last hearing. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong about that. And Kevin can give you more information about that. So if there are no questions, we can move ahead, or I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Let's move ahead, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Julie. This is Kevin Nigro, and just to reiterate what Julie said, to pick up on, is we did attend the last Traffic Advisory Committee meeting, and our understanding is that that committee, maybe through the town engineer, will send comments along to the ZBA for their inclusion in their meeting. And at this time, I'd just like to move things along and kick it off to David Conway from Niche Engineering. He can tell everybody about the new submissions he's made and the meetings he's had with the town. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
David. Hope you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Kevin. So I'll be brief. So the last time we met, we had submitted revised materials in response to comments, really addressing everyone's comments except the stormwater peer review. So this past Thursday, we submitted updated plans and supporting calculations and response to those comments. And I see Bill's here tonight, so I'm sure he'll give you his thoughts on it. So we revised the revisions to the stormwater on the plans, and they're reflected in the calculation. All the revisions are in on the plans are in areas that were previously proposed to be developed. So there's no expansion of limit of works or anything like that. It's really just moving some of the detention facilities up to higher ground so that we can get some sort of infiltration, making sure our flows are right. And then a lot of the work we've been doing has been involved in the model, and getting the hydrologic model into to address the engineering department's comments. So that being said, I don't know if you would like to, you want to see the particulars of what I'm talking about, or maybe listen, hear what Bill has to say. Now, to be fair, it's, they received we have been in close contact with them, meeting with them throughout since the last couple of meetings, probably like 4 or 5 times. But the new submission was submitted Thursday morning, and yesterday was a holiday, so I'm sure they're still developing the response, but maybe they can give you a feel for what they've seen so far.
Bill, would you like to
Sure.
bring us up to
No,
date,
so-
please?
Yeah, so basically, I think Dave summed it up pretty well. We've been working pretty close together over the last few weeks to work with them on their model and to make sure that they're looking at kind of each wetland, and then their analysis points are consistent with what we wanted to see. So the submittal came in. He did a quick review with us on the particulars of the of the analysis and how he was responding to certain comments. So the model seems to be kind of in the framework that we were looking for at this point. And, obviously we're still reviewing. It took him, a few weeks to pull it together. It takes us a few days to review. So we don't have a comment memo for today, but we will definitely have it by the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So I'm again, the changes to the plan were really mostly subsurface under areas that were already being developed. So we're not kind of expanding the footprint of what was being proposed, especially in regards to like any buffer zone or wetland work. So I'm not sure if there's other questions people would like us to address, or thoughts, or if you even want to start kind of, maybe talking about concerns or potential conditions, as we try to move this along.
Dave, I think you also just want to note that at this point, you're now meeting the recharge requirement for the site, right? With the current model.
I believe so, but like yeah.
So we talked about that at the last meeting. So he submitted it with some additional recharge, actually meeting the standards. So we'll review that to make sure that's consistent.
Yeah,
I think that's probably that's one of the big ones that we had as a comment. So
and really like a deeper dive and a closer, I don't know how, really looking at the kind of the offsite impacts, especially towards June Circle too. Like we kind of like really at your direction focused in on that a lot more to make sure that the school project wasn't going to cause any more issues that for those neighbors, that they don't, beyond what's already there. So, Mr. Chair, I'm open to however you want to proceed.
Yeah, we don't have either one of our peer reviewers available tonight with us to ask for their input or any additional comments they may have. But there were some questions or topics that did come up at the last meeting that are still, I guess, pending or outstanding. One of which was how to mitigate for the salting, of the access road or driveway. We did some investigating and then, relied on, some of our experts in the town, and doesn't seem to be any great options short of heating that driveway. Which certainly is possible. People are more and more heating their driveways. I don't know if that's something you've looked at or considered.
I think the energy cost would, and the kind of the energy toll on the environment would not be something the school would kind of be looking to do. And also for a driveway of that length, and I don't think I've ever seen one of those systems work.
Dave, I think if you want to see the system work, we were successful in having the people on Audubon Road on that apartment complex. That system is all heated. The whole parking lot's heated. They've been running that system for 7 years now, and they've had great success with it. So I think it's something that needs to be looked into. Or you're going to have to prove that the salt that you're going to be putting into this wetland is not going to kill it.
So, I mean, and we've discussed this. It's, we're open to other alternatives in salt. So if, is there a condition to salt, you don't want us to use salt, we can use some other de-icing material, limit sand use, whatever it is, we're willing.
I
We're
don't
willing
think you have, I don't see that you have any evidence that you've shown or that what this wetland is going to receive from salt is detrimental to it. I mean, we don't know that. The best thing to do is take the salt right out of the picture. I think you should check into a heated system. I know there's a payback period for it, but I think it's like 10 years.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kevin.
Yes, Kevin.
So we're not going to entertain a heated driveway. We think it's impractical. It's outside of what we'd want to do to comply with the energy code. And we have reached out, as we said we would, with the town engineer and DPW to work on a solution that would include no salt and signage as well on the driveway to comply. Again, we don't have the driveway in place. It's not an imminent danger right now. And we'll certainly would like to continue working with Bill to come up with that solution.
If you're going to say that the salt is not an issue, you need to prove it.
Didn't say it wasn't. Mr. Chairman said that we're open to no salt, said we're open to no salt and signage and any other alternate chemicals. We'd be happy to work with the town, but if the wish of the commission is no salt, then it would be no salt. We can certainly sand the driveway, I believe, if that's acceptable. And we would have a no salt restriction, seems reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, the salt potentially would impact two of the interests, of the act being prevention of pollution and protection of wildlife. Both of those could be impacted by the chloride.
Sure, we agree.
So yes, a salt free option is certainly something that needs to be looked at and thought about. As far as heating driveways, I know there's multiple methods of doing it, electric or a boiler, more and more areas are doing it. It is, there is a cost, associated with the installation. And then of course there's a cost, energy wise to, keep that going. But yes, please look at all alternatives, to exclude salt use.
Sure, we
entirely.
would expect that to be part of our order of conditions. Is not a problem.
Okay.
But can I just ask, Bob, are you saying it's gonna be part of the order of conditions, or are you saying what I think you're saying, which is you have to show it to us now?
We'd like to see what the solution is or what the O&M plan is proposing that would be salt-free.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Chairman, I don't know, is this a cause to leave, keep this continuing, or again, is it proper that we you make that comment during the order of conditions and we comply?
I'm sorry,
I
Chair.
don't see that this is
I'm
a,
s-
I'm still
Okay.
talking, ma'am. So,
Sorry, but every time you talk, you don't say who you are. So for the
okay, I started
public,
off
can
by
you
saying who
please?
I was. This is Kevin.
Okay, we didn't hear that. Thank
Yeah,
you,
okay,
Kevin.
thank you for
Okay.
interrupting.
So hang
So
on.
again, what we've said at multiple meetings now that we'd work with the town and we'd comply with whatever it is standard that they wanted to apply. And if that includes no salt, I don't think that's a big stretch. I just don't see that that's a need to continue this on. We can commit now. Dave Conway's on the line, Warner Larson. I believe that in other areas of where I've dealt with DPWs, certainly a no salt was an option. And if we need a written commitment from the district or something to that means, we can do that. It just, again, we're not arguing this. We're saying, yes, we agree. And we'll comply.
All right, that's fair enough.
And I'm not sure who that was that jumped in. I think it may have been Sasha.
Yes,
Please
I,
do not jump in, do not interrupt, and raise your hand if you have a question or a comment, please.
I'm sorry. I just didn't know who was speaking because this person kept speaking and didn't say who they were. So I wanted to know as a public attender to this meeting. So I do have a right to know who's speaking in on this call because I'm not in.
Yes, he was identified at the outset of the meeting.
But as a courtesy, when somebody speaks, they should say who they are and when they speak. Thank you.
Okay, what's next? Jim, did you have a question?
Do I have a question?
Did you have a question? Yeah.
No, I'm all set. I mean, if they can do it with no salt, that's all that's the important part right there, no salt.
Agreed. what other questions do we have on the table from last meeting?
I'm sorry, again, as a public, I know I'm not allowed to ask, but
Sasha, you raised your hand and started talking without being recognized to ask. So when you raise your hand, please wait to be called on.
yes, sorry.
What is your question or comment, Sasha?
I would like to know what evidence are they going to provide to the public around the salt? How are we going to know that they are going to actually put this in place? Like, this is all lip service. I want to know specifically, every time I come to this meeting, we talk about things, we say we're going to do things, and I don't see any evidence. I want to know what's the action item and who is following up on this. And as a public person who is a taxpayer, who's concerned about this project and the cost overruns, again, now I'm hearing another mitigation. Where is the evidence and who is providing it? Please tell me. Thank you.
Sasha, you didn't identify your address.
I live in Melrose on East Highland Avenue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I guess a couple things. One, if we put no salt in the order of conditions, that would be one way to document this. And if there was an alteration or salt was used, we'd be able to take action against that. But the applicant has said already that they will work on a no salt option and alternative.
I mean, there are no salt de-icers. You can use a calcium magnesium acetate. That's a product that has no salt in it. It's definitely more expensive. That would be an alternative. I just think it's steep grades, and Dave, I think you want to maybe talk to your team about whether that is the best decision for your team, because there's steep slopes on your road. So I mean, you don't want to have the whole entire site not to be able to use salt, or just the access road if it's being limited to that. I think you want to really come up with a proposal to the commission as to how you're handling it. That would be my suggestion.
Thanks, Bill.
Mr. Chairman, can we have Doug Heath? maybe
Yes,
Speak to his letter.
so I do see hand raised. Doug Heath and Alison Simcox have hand raised. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doug Heath, 28 Stemmen Street, Wakefield. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I agree a no salt option is probably the only one that would work for the site. Regular chloride-based de-icers would overwhelm these small water bodies and kill off whatever life and both plants and animals that exist there. There is no way that you could put down the amount of salt required for public safety, for the students, for trucks, cars, application on sidewalks, on both the so-called driveway, which is actually going to be a 2-lane road about 900 feet long, and also the large parking lot adjacent to the school. All runoff from that carrying salty water will go straight into these wetland bodies, storm after storm after storm, year after year after year, and effectively completely kill off whatever life is there. So I think either not building the school at this location or a no salt option is about all you have facing the commission.
Thank you.
Bob, may I speak again?
Yes, Teresa, please.
So I couldn't agree more with Bill that we need to see what the plan is, not that there'll be no salt, but we want to see what it is that they're going to propose so that we understand what it's going to be, so that again, that whatever they use could have other effects on the wetlands. So I just, again, the rest of my commission members may disagree with me, but I think we need to see the plan, just as Bill suggested.
Doug, your hand is still raised. Do you have another comment or? Oh, you're unmuted now. Okay. Are you all set or? Doug, are you all set?
Yes, also I've been doing sampling lately And I recently, with Bob Brooks, who's a butter, sampled the outflow coming out of Series 1 wetlands the other day. And we found out the specific conductance was only about 1.5 microsiemens per centimeter, which means that it's nearly pristine, and that equates to less than 1 milligram per liter chloride. So the conditions there are ideal for a woodland scenario of freshwater wetlands. That would drastically change with the high pollutant levels that the school will impose on that small system. So I really recommend that other non-salt, non-chloride options be explored, such as calcium magnesium acetate. And perhaps there are others as well. This is about the only thing that will work and not degrade and the wetlands there, and also violate Massachusetts surface water quality standards as expressed in 314 CMR 4.055E. As I expressed in my letter to the editor, which I believe I also forwarded to the commission. I was published in today's Wakefield item.
Yeah, and from
Thank
my
you,
own
Phil.
knowledge, I'm also a hydrologist. Oh, Allison Simcox, also 28 Stemon Street, and I'm a PhD in environmental engineering. From my knowledge of impacts on wetlands from a project like this, there is no way to preserve this wetland as a quality wetland that now exists. It will be degraded. It may be slightly degraded, it may be completely degraded, but it will not be in its current condition, and it would be, it would be lost. It would no longer be a high quality wetland and considered by the state to be a pristine, least impact wetland. So you're accepting losing these water bodies if you build this project.
Thank you. And so we do have a baseline measurement now that you took where the outflow at June Circle.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And I'm surprised that no baseline surveys have been done of the existing series 1, 2, 3 wetlands, considering what life forms exist there, what is the water chemistry, what are other forms of biology. It's I think appalling to me that there's been very little science dedicated to what these resources are and how much absorptive capacity they have for attenuating any kind of pollutant loading. So hopefully that can be corrected in the future.
And it's not possible just to simply model areas. You need to go out there and sample them and look at what you actually have, not what you assume that you have using modeling assumptions.
Thank you. Bill, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing the discussion about surface water. I mean, and while I'm sure all of that's accurate, and we have to keep in mind that there still is, a wetland that's going to a pipe system that has chloride being applied to it within 100 feet of what we're talking about. So, the Wetland Protection Act has a clear set of standards that lay all of this out, especially related to stormwater. The uses allowed within this type of, they're not filling over their 5,000 square feet. They're meeting all of these other requirements. I think at some point we got to look at focusing on the actual requirements within the Wetland Protection Act. I'm sure there's a lot of discussion on this. If this ever gets appealed, I mean, we want to be consistent as a board, in my opinion, with what we have for stormwater standards, because that's what is driving a lot of this. And the salt is really not a pollutant that's identified there. It's in the interest of the act, and I think Bob, you made a great point that is the case. But if they're coming up with solutions to minimize, I mean, that's the goal is to minimize the impacts, and they are attempting to do that. I think that they could do a better job of presenting it. I don't think they've really presented you an alternative yet. That probably would have been better to have for this meeting to hopefully quell some of the conversations. But it's pretty clear, though, that they've increased their infiltration to meet the requirements. They have they have all of their pre-treatment trains that and meeting their 80% TSS removal prior to infiltration. So they're doing all of the things that are required through the stormwater standards. And I just think that that's something we have to keep in mind as a board. But that's my soapbox. So I'm done after that.
Thank you. All right, any other questions or comments regarding this?
Bob, may I add something?
Sure, Haley.
Hi, everyone. Haley McCatton. Not disagreeing with anything Bill has just said. Appreciate everything from Doug, and I apologize, I've forgotten the other woman's name. Alice, sorry. I think that's all important, and we are all going to have some compromise and some give and take and trying to figure this out. However, I will add that we are here for the Wetlands Protection Act. We are here to protect the wetlands, and we are only doing what we can to keep it as pristine as possible, understanding that the world will have impacts, but we need to try to do our best to minimize those. That's all.
Thank you, Haley. Yeah, I mean, a few things, regarding that. So the area is certainly not significant to the protection of the interests of the act. It is significant. I think we can all agree on that. The other thing is, will the work contribute to the protection of the interests? Well, as we've discussed, the chloride would not be contributing to the protection, and we've already talked about not having any salt in any way. So really, those are two of the things we need to think about, with the interest itself. Any other comments or questions regarding that? Bob Brooks, you have your hand raised.
Yes, Bob Brooks, 7 June Circle. Mr. Chairman, as Doug mentioned, I was out the other day with him when he had brought his, what is it, Doug, a water meter, a hydrometer?
Yes, it's a YSI 85.
Okay.
Very commonly used in
too technical for me.
Engineering companies.
Okay, too technical for me.
And calibrated calibration solution as well.
Okay, since there's been no other evaluations of the wetlands and wetlands, 2, 3, and 4, I think it was, and the vernal ponds. I know that especially during the summer and this month, it's been a fairly dry season out there and not as much water as normally been out there. When I go out in my backyard, you can see how dry it is. I could actually walk across areas which I could never before. I know there's some rain coming up next few days with the snow. Is it possible that we could get out there and actually get a measurement of that, similar to what we did at the culvert at Wetlands 1? Just to get a base, a base measurement of it and knowing how clear it is, or how can you tell if although they said there's no chlorination in there, just to at least get a base measurement of what exists there. There's never been a base measurement.
So the question for the applicant is, would it be possible for Bob or Doug to get out there and do some sampling? Who would like to answer that? Julie, you have your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would certainly like to discuss it, as well as we'd like to know who gave permission to enter the property to take the samples to begin with, because there was certainly none requested. So we would like the opportunity to discuss it. And I'd also like to point out that Mr. Heath provided quite a lengthy letter to the editor today, which I think that we've all seen. There's a lot of things being thrown around here that suggest at their core that this commission is not doing its job. This commission's authority and jurisdiction arise under the Wetlands Protection Act and under its regulations. And it is my understanding and certainly my view, and I don't think there's anyone that can reasonably dispute it, that this commission has acted duly within its authority and jurisdiction in continually requesting information in order to make sure that those aspects of the Wetlands Protection Act that apply to those aspects of the jurisdictional resource area that are implicated by this project, that those are adhered to. So to have these gross blanket statements that this commission is not doing its duty, because that's really at its heart what they're saying, that this project is taking off willy-nilly with no oversight, no questioning, no review, no authority, is simply incorrect and wrong. This group that I've been involved with has done and endeavored to provide every question answered and all of the information necessary to show that it is complying with the Wetlands Protection Act and the attendant stormwater policy of the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection to the extent that it is able to under the Wetlands Protection Act. And this commission is charged with protecting that jurisdictional resource area, which it is doing through its investigative process. So to have these blankets thrown out about these things have not been done is simply incorrect. And I would request that this should be shown in the record. If there were specific aspects of Mr. Heath's letter that need to be responded to, we are happy to do that. We weren't prepared to have this fulsome discussion of it tonight, but we certainly can. And as far as sampling to be done on the property, there's ways that it needs to be done in order to ensure the integrity of these samples, to make sure that everybody involved gets an accurate copy of these samples and the results. So we will certainly discuss it as a team. And at the time that if we do agree to Mr. Heath or anyone else entering school property in order to make these assessments, if we decide to allow them to do so, we'll make sure that someone from our team is there for the sampling and that someone from the commission or the conservation agent is there as well.
Mr. Chairman, may I respond?
Sure, hang on for 1 second. So Bob, that was the answer to your question.
Okay. I have a quick response to that. The place where we actually took the sample was at the culvert, which I believe is it borders town property and the northeast property. And that's where the water goes in the culvert. I don't know if the town's property is 1 or 2 feet one way, or the northeast property is 1 or 2 feet, or does it end specifically at the culvert? I'm not sure, but we weren't prancing around the property. We were at one specific location between 2 houses, and that's where we took the sample from.
Bob,
Well, to be clear, it
does.
doesn't matter if nobody was suggesting you were prancing around the property. However, to be clear, if these samples are going to be taken, they have to be taken correctly and methodically in a way that everyone is notified of them having been taken. And whether you are prancing around the property or just standing there taking water samples, if you do it without permission, you're trespassing. So we would certainly agree to discuss this with the group and consider a response and doing this in a way that is appropriate to make sure that everyone is protected here. It's not just us, it's Bob as well. He certainly doesn't want to be considered having entered property without permission.
Oh, I understand because there was no fence. I understand where the property lines are. But my understanding is the culvert is the town of Wakefield's property, correct?
I'm telling you that if we are going to entertain doing the sampling, and the other
Oh,
thing
no,
is,
we can.
if
we
we're
can
going to
talk about it.
entertain doing the sampling, then we will make sure that it's done at the correct place and that all necessary
No, that's
permission is
fine.
granted.
No, that's fine. No, I
Okay.
just,
Great.
Right, Mr. Chairman, may
Right.
I say something?
Yes, please.
Yes, hi. I agree with Julie that these should be done properly. I've done a lot of environmental monitoring in my 30 years at EPA, including many road salt studies on I-93 and other places. And I agree that a QAP, should be prepared, specifying exactly where samples are to be taken, protocols for custody, who's going to do the analysis and what parameters will be analyzed for. All that should be done. I simply went out there with Bob to find out just with him just what is going on with one little small sample with one using this device in the water right at the culvert to find out just what the levels are. Very simply done. And I was just frustrated that there was no interest in either the commission or the consultants to actually do that. So hopefully that we can go forth in the future and do a more thorough and intensive study of what actually both biology and chemistry these water bodies have. Just for
Again, Mr. Chairman, if I may, just to get back to the heart of this, because the issue is, again, the commission is being questioned as to what it has done here.
No,
What we would.
You're misunderstanding.
Mr. Heath, please do not interrupt me.
Well, hang on.
Okay, the fact is
You
that
actually
Excuse me, you
interrupted him.
interrupted him.
You interrupted.
I'm listening, you interrupted him.
Yeah, and
We need to be all
please.
civilized. We need to be all civilized. So,
Sure.
Yes.
okay.
So hang on.
But
Everybody stop
anyway,
for a second.
yes,
Doug,
I
finish your
fully
thought.
agree. And my frustration was that nobody had raised the issue, in last meeting. So my whole goal is that somehow something could be done in the future by the commission, hiring consultants, or the proponents consultants as well. That'll all be fine. Just as a side issue, this is the amount of salt that I scraped off the existing parking lot for at the school about 4 days ago. And it's put down by the DCR. They take it from their Stoneham Barn and do all of Hemlock Road. My fear is that as we go on in the future, that we'll be ending up doing this again. The salt that is on the pavement is now being washed off through DP7, which is a culvert that drains pretty much the entire school and goes off to the Saugus River. So my hope is that we will not backslide into overusing salt in this area and doing more damage to the existing environment that has already been done.
All right.
Mr.
thank you,
Chair,
Doug.
if I may respond briefly,
Julie.
because that's extraordinarily inflammatory. You could go dig up road salt anywhere in the town and it's going to look just like that. The fact of the matter is that this applicant has met every necessary requirement for obtaining the order of conditions that it needs from this commission in order to develop this project, this 12 district vocational technical school project at the same property. So it is not, the applicant is required to comply with the regulations and the stormwater management standards. And you've heard from the town engineer, Mr. Renault, that it does comply, or that he is working with the applicant for no salt alternatives to make sure that every avenue is explored. So the fact of the matter is that if there are these base level tests that are required to be done, then we will consider them and we will make sure they are done appropriately, just as we have made sure that we are complying with all of this board's, the State Wetland Protection Act's regulations and this board's rules in order to apply for the notice of intent and get this board's approval and an order of conditions for those jurisdictional resource areas that are at issue here. Thank you for your time again, and again, I would say that to the extent that it's necessary to provide any sort of information or response to Mr. Heath's lengthy letter of today, we're prepared to do that, but not necessarily prepared to address all of those detailed comments tonight.
Okay, no, I agree. Thanks very much.
All right, I believe Joy Pearson, your hand was up next. Up, you are muted. It is still muted.
Actually, Bronwyn was up before her hand, but I will speak if you'd like. I listened to you on, if I can use an analogy, a ladder, and you were on rung 5 of the ladder. I'd like to go back down, and I would like to say that I read that the Wakefield Conservation Commission is responsible for applying Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, MEPA, rules to building and other projects regarding natural resource protection. MEPA requires that state agencies study the environmental consequences of their actions and take all feasible measures to avoid minimize and mitigate damage to the environment. My question is, how are you protecting the environment at the hill forest and protecting the natural resources there? We're way up the line and we haven't really answered that question.
Who is that question directed to, please?
Well, this unsighted man, Kevin, I think, because I've heard his voice, and I believe it's his voice every time he speaks. Kevin, can you tell me how the Conservation Commission, which is required to avoid, minimize, or mitigate damage to the environment, how it is doing that and protecting the environment and natural resources on the hill forest?
Mr. Chairman, if I
Oh.
may, I can address this question.
I asked Mr. Nigro.
Well, the question you're asking
It's a
isn't
legal question.
exactly the question for the commission. We're dealing with jurisdictional areas, and I think you're referring to an area that's outside of our jurisdiction. If you're referring to the top of the hill.
Excuse me, I have read exactly from your website. So it seems that the Conservation Commission is responsible for, and what I read. So I don't see how it's out of your jurisdiction if it's from your website.
So Wetlands Protection Act covers wetland resource areas, riverfront areas, buffer zones. Those areas are within our jurisdiction. So the roadway with the wetlands and other resources are jurisdictional to us, and that's why we've been spending the amount of time we have on that roadway. The area upland that you're referring to, I believe you're referring to, would be a non-jurisdictional area. So I don't know if that answers your question or not, but Julie Barry, you had a comment concerning that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to say that I believe Ms. Pearson mentioned MIPA, and that's the commission's jurisdiction derives under the Wetlands Protection Act. The administrator of the Executive Office of Environmental Affairs has already determined that MIPA review is not required for this project.
Thank you. Rowan Delavolpe, you have a hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I would like to say that I believe that there's been a gross misinterpretation of the letter written by Mr. Heath. I think if one goes back and reads it very slowly and carefully, you'll see that there are really no accusations, just stating the responsibilities and charges. So I think that comment was one person's personal opinion, and I think it was an error. I'd also like to say that I think that when the public speaks and feels it necessary to write such letters and to take such tests, I think it's indicative that there's great concern, and we have been working cooperatively from day one with the Conservation Commission. And I think we've been doing due diligence and our research very, very well. And while it's always great to trust but verify, I know Mr. Heath and I know Ms. Simcox, and I know their background, and they are a professional to the core. And they live their lives and they write their letters in facts. And I think that not ought to be thrown into the road. And I think it should be considered just as highly and with equal importance as the proponent's information, considering the source it's coming from. The public is not the bad guy here. There are no bad guys and good guys. We have a situation. We have a project. We have some severe acute problems that must be solved before this project can move forward. And this unnecessary and ineffectual accusations should not stand and should be rebuffed by this committee chair. We've been nothing but civil and patient and cooperative, and all due respect should be shown. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug, is your hand up, or is it just up from the last time? You're muted.
Yes, I took the hand down. Thanks very
Okay.
much. And thanks for your defense, Bron.
Okay. All right. Any additional questions from the commission? Any additional requests at this time from the commission?
Yes, I have one, Bob. If you-
Elaine, please.
This is Elaine Vreeland. I'm the co-agent with Rebecca Davis for the Conservation Commission, and I'm filling in for Rebecca this evening. I just wanted to clarify, I'm looking at my notes here, and I understand that there will be a response to Doug Heath's letter, all the points raised in Doug Heath's letter to the Wakefield Daily item tonight. I just want to make sure that that response will include a response addressing the Massachusetts surface water quality standards and their discharges into outstanding resource waters, which are referenced in the Wetlands Protection Act itself. So I just want to make that clear that when that response comes in, I would definitely like to see the applicant's response to that particular portion of the letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. All right. Any other questions or comments from the commission?
This
All
is
right.
Peter.
Yes,
Bob,
Peter.
this is Peter Brand. I just want to make sure that was it decided that to follow up on Bill Rideau's comment that we would request that a specific plan be developed, presented to us for approval regarding snow removal and ice removal. Salt, I mean,
Mr.
the
Chairman,
alternative to salting.
Mr. Chairman, this is Kevin.
Yes, Kevin.
We had presented a snowplow plan earlier at the request of this commission, and we'd be happy to update it for the next meeting.
No,
Thank you.
I guess I meant, I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
you didn't mean
I meant
snow,
the
you meant-
alternative to salt. I guess I thought the question was,
Understood. I understand.
okay, we can
Yeah,
include
okay.
that.
I understand.
Okay, so you'll choose what you think is the best alternative and present it as what you think is the best alternative under the specific alternative under the circumstances, the specific alternative to salt under the circumstances.
Yes, Peter, we've heard the chair's
Okay.
comment and.
Okay,
and that of
good,
the
good.
public.
It wasn't entirely clear.
Again, we thought we were working towards the, no offense taken to the question by our Ms. Parsons, I believe, was joined us for the first time, is we have talked about this, and I just wanted people to know that Bill and I have had an email correspondence, as I said I would. I followed up about the no salt, but I think that given the consternation on this and the letter to the editor, we'll update that plan and we'll offer some solutions, and maybe I can work a little closer, pick up the phone with Bill and make sure we're in harmony before the next meeting. Not a problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Bob, I had one other question about
Go, Peter.
landscaping. Was that already covered, or is that something that is? Are we just finishing up all final questions right now on the
No.
entire project? Okay, I just want to make sure. So now I am, because I did have a question about landscaping.
Yeah, no, ask your question, please.
Okay, and it's my comment. I think that it wasn't entirely clear to me about the what will be done with the, I guess I'll call it what is mostly a 25-foot buffer along the, these sensitive wetlands. And I guess the question I have is not so much, I thought there was just some discussion about if trees are taken out, then there'll be some replanting. But I guess what I want to make sure is that we are satisfied that if we're going with what I think is absolutely the minimum, the 25-foot buffer, that that is, the planting is maximized to ensure the most possible canopy will be created in that 25-foot buffer. Take into account that at 26 feet, that a lot of trees in back of the 25-foot buffer are going to be taken out for the road. I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can with the limited amount, because that's not a lot of land. And I just think that it has to be, that there should be a plan that specifically contemplates creating or restoring the maximum possible buffer that can be created in that 25 feet.
Yeah, to that point, Peter, I think there was a section on the plan that showed a planting area, but then I believe there was a comment made that there would be additional plantings further up the road that weren't on the drawing.
Okay.
I think there's also a question about the replication area with the roundabout being potentially impacted with the roundabout that I think we need to have some more information on. I know Elaine or Rebecca, neither one of them were able to go out there or did not go out there yet because of the pending roundabout, versus a straight driveway. There was going to be, the applicant and agent taking a look at those replication areas, but that got put on hold pending the new drawings. So yeah, two things, the replication areas needed to be looked at and the plantings alongside of the road, I think needed to be added to the drawings.
So Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
it's Dave
Mr.
Conway.
Chairman, it's Kevin,
Yes,
I was
Dave.
just going to ask if Dave could address that. I'm sorry, Dave. Yeah,
And I was
because I believe we did update the drawings.
So Dave Conway from Niche Engineering. So the planting plans have been part of the submissions, and the landscape architects are here tonight if you would like a quick walkthrough for that area, or again, they've been part of the submission. So we do have the invasive removals called out, and then the supplemental plantings. So in the landscape architect drawings.
David,
And just to add, great care was kind of taken to really try to minimize tree removal as where the road was sited.
David, question, with the roundabout option, was it the invasives removal that was going to be impacted or the replication area or both?
So there's no replication because we're not filling anywhere. So the invasive removal area, the restoration of the restoration of the invasive removal area got smaller because the roundabout footprint ends up on some of that area. So not to be cheeky about it, but the invasives would still be removed, but some of them would actually be under the roundabout. But timing wise, we would probably still have to do the invasive removal in a similar fashion in those areas before the roundabout.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Rebecca was actually going to team up with somebody in your team to walk the areas for the invasive removal. That did get put on hold with the addition of the roundabout. All right. Any other questions from the commission?
I have one, Bob. Just a clarifying. With the two culverts that are planned, I know there's a 10-foot one and then there's a 15-foot one a little further up. And I can see the scale to figure out approximately the length. But could we just clarify the height of those culverts?
Sure. I looked at Paige Simmons from Niche Engineering. Page, if you're available, and because they're wildlife crossing, so they have a good height to them, a minimum 3 feet, but because they slope against the land, one of them starts at 3 feet and gets higher.
Okay.
Yes, the 10-foot culvert is 3 feet high, 3 feet, sorry, 3 feet clear, I should say. And they're actually both 3 feet clear. Sorry, one is the 3 feet clear minimum, but one will have higher clearance of approximately like 4.5 feet. The 15-foot one, but 3 foot's the bare minimum.
Because the ground slopes down under it.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
One further question on those. This is Paul Wendelgas. Do you expect flow through those much of the season?
So they've been designed to allow flow through them. One of them is to preserve banks, so there would probably be flow through that as well. But their size is really dictated by the wildlife providing, you know, a clear safe opening for like the wildlife.
Well, much of which will be diverted towards them by the barrier which will be installed.
Correct.
Paul, was there a question about the height of the barrier? Or-
Yeah, I saw two. Yeah, I did see two different heights, Dave. In one of your documents, you had a drawing that showed a barrier height above ground of only 6 inches. And then some other materials you presented the 40-inch barrier, which has a 22-inch height. Is that?
That's the one. So that's the one that's partially buried, and it's, I was going to say 24, but is it 22 inches above
I believe
grade?
it's 22 inches above grade, and then the lip and the folded down top.
Yes.
Okay.
That's the one that was submitted, the Animex on, I think, the 12th of January. Nope, I am wrong. The 1st of February.
Okay. Just to get it clear, because I found two different documents in the course of reviewing that.
Yeah, so the supplemental materials that were sent on, maybe you're available to you the February 2nd, there's a 17-page Animex document where we crossed out all the because they show a detail for like a million different type of Animexes. And so then you can zero in on the one. And as I'm saying that, yep, the post is 24 inches high and the Animex barrier is 22 inches high.
Okay. Thanks.
Anything else, Paul, regarding that?
No, I've had some contact with New Jersey DEP and their analysis of performance. They seem to be pretty happy with how it's performing at some of the wetlands they have. The only issue they see is with species that are really good at climbing. They do end up with some of the amphibians that can climb well going over the top. But in general, it's worked quite well as a retrofit option in road situations they have.
Okay. Peter, did you have a question?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Joy, I'm not sure if your hand is raised or was raised from before. You are muted. Oh, there you go.
Thank you. Yes, I still don't understand why your assumption is that the school will be built, because I think I'd like to go back to this avoid, minimize, or mitigate damage to the environment. That avoid is the first thing. And there is an alternative that you have Minuteman Tech built on their football field. It's adequate. Your football field is the same size. Football fields don't vary in size. And so your assumption is puzzling to me, why you are going ahead with the assumption that this is going to happen, and then you're going to minimize the water or stormwater runoff. When I think Julie said this is not your jurisdiction to talk about what I consider to be an assumption, but can you tell me how building a school on the hill forest protects the environment?
So who is that question directed to?
I'll address it to Kevin again if he's here.
I mean, from the commission standpoint, we are reviewing the project before us, and that's what we can comment on. So, I don't know that I can answer your question because it's not necessarily pertinent to our review.
Are you not to protect the environment?
So we are, again, we've already talked about what our jurisdiction is on this. So I'm not going to reiterate that.
Okay. So you're building everything on an assumption. And I don't understand that.
We are reviewing the project before us, and we are not making any assumptions.
So it's still on the table that you, the town of Wakefield, whomever would fit under this, could choose an alternative.
That wouldn't be our area. Again, we
Okay.
are reviewing the project before us, and we are reviewing the jurisdictional areas.
So you are really kind of narrow. The Conservation Commission is much narrower than I thought. I thought the Conservation Commission was really in charge of protecting the environment, but you're not. You're there to talk about something that topic that someone has given you, and that's it. Of course, that can't be it, because you've talked about many, many things that I am not privy to. But I hear you say that your jurisdiction is a narrow one. That's it. That was an answer to my question.
Okay, thank you. Elaine,
Yes.
would you like to add any, I guess, flavor to my response?
Well, the difference between the Wetlands Protection Act and MIPA review. I think MIPA review is broader. MIPA review tends to look at the environment per se, far more so than the Conservation Commission, who looks at the environment within the jurisdiction of the Wetlands Protection Act. And that is significantly less. It involves resource areas, wet areas, marshes, meadows, rivers, floodplains, riverfront areas, and that's it. So in this case, because there's no riverfront area, it would be 100 feet from all of those wetlands and vernal pools. And that is the area with which the Conservation Commission has legal jurisdiction. If you want something broader than that, I think maybe you're referring to MIPA review. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you, Elaine. All right, any other questions from the commission or comments at this time? All right, so we are waiting for the stormwater review. We are waiting for comments from our peer reviewers. Again, neither of which could join us tonight. I did fail to mention that one of our commissioners, Ken Lipides, did join us at the beginning of the meeting and has been with us, all night. So let's see, anything else right now that we're asking of the applicant?
Yes, I'm asking for a response to Doug Heath's comments regarding surface water quality standards and stormwater discharges.
Okay.
And I thought also we were asking for, Bob, a plan for the no salt alternative.
Yes.
Can
Anything else?
can I ask one other thing? Sorry, Tracy, am I interrupting you?
No, I'm all
So-
done,
No.
Elaine, thank you.
Okay, has anybody looked at a pervious pavement?
It was considered, the ground conditions don't allow it,
Okay, too much ledge?
correct, and high groundwater.
Okay.
All right, so if there's nothing else, we will continue until the next meeting, which is Tuesday, March 7th. And we will move on to our next topics on the agenda. Thank you for your participation and your questions and responses, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine, I see, let's see, we have some other business.
Okay, are you referring to the Woburn to Wakefield line project request for
Yeah.
certificate of compliance?
So
Okay.
actually, I will say that 10 Broadway has been postponed per the applicant. We don't have a file number on that one, but that 10 Broadway has been postponed per the applicant. So yes, Woburn to Wakefield line project, Elaine.
Okay, so what I will say on this one is that in the autumn, I walked the entire line with Dave Clinch from Epsilon. And I looked at erosion control. I looked at any possible erosion, any impact to resource areas, and everything looked fine. So the only thing I haven't really been able to do is get a response from the engineering department with regards to the as-built plans. So I'd just like to make sure that Bill Renault has a chance to weigh in on the as-built plans. I'm okay at the conservation end, but I'd like to make sure all the drainage, the culverts and everything else that are within jurisdictional areas have been approved by Bill, and I haven't heard back from him on that yet. So I'd like to ask it to be continued just to get a response from engineering, and that will be the last thing. Other than that, it looks good. We walked it, we spent a lot of time walking it last fall, and it looks good, it looks neat, it looks clean. I did not see any impact to wetland resource areas on the walk.
Okay, thanks, Elaine.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I'm on the phone, so this is Sasha again. I know I keep interrupting, but can I just know what this project is so I understand what this woman is talking about?
So
I don't know
Sasha,
if
do you have
I'm
the
allowed
ability
to
on,
do
on
that.
your phone to raise your hand? I don't know if you do.
I don't think I do, so I'm sorry to interrupt again.
So Rebecca is one of our agents and
Yes.
Elaine is one of our agents. They are co-agents and Elaine is covering for tonight. And Elaine, you want to give a brief overview of what that project
Sure.
is?
It's basically the bike path. It's the bike path that runs through Wakefield starts down around Main Street in the Galvin School and cuts through town and goes pretty much to the town line up through the beginnings of Reedy Meadow. So it was graded and asphalted. And so at the end of the project, I did an inspection last fall with the consultant for the applicant. And when I went to look at the project, it looked good from a conservation point of view. I did not see erosion into the wetlands. I did not see encroachment into the wetlands. But what I said was I was going to ask Bill Renault, who has just texted me something right here, if he would take a look at the as-built plans for me so that we have his input before the final document is issued. And if you'll give me 1 second. Let's see. Sorry. He is referring back to the information, the text he just sent me refers, but not to this project, but to the proposed high school. So I'm just going to ask Bill Renault, the town engineer, just to weigh in on the as-built plan to make sure that they all look all right. And once I get a sign off from the town engineer, I would confirm that the project is ready to be closed out.
Thank you, Elaine.
Elaine,
Peter.
can I ask a question about that? This is
Sure.
this is the railroad line, right? So
This is the
the,
railroad. Yes, it is.
and so I guess the question I have, this just goes to my, one of our commission's interests, which is passive recreation. When the project is completed, would that be the time that trail will be, that area will be open to the public?
I don't know why it's not open now. I mean, you can certainly ride a bike or walk on it. I never thought it was closed. So your question takes me by surprise, but it's certainly open. It's ready to go. You can walk it. You can ride your bike on it.
I looked at it and I saw signs saying, keep off. Please take notice.
Okay. Then if that's the case, then I will talk to
I
Dave.
just want to, and then I just want to understand that when this is done, that when they say it's done, is there an understanding that upon completion of the project, it'll be open to the public for use?
I will check that out.
Peter,
And I'll
where
make
did-
sure
where did
if
you-
it is that he takes down those signs.
Where did you see that sign, Peter?
I saw it, I started walking down from Salem Street down to, and then I think when I, about 100 or 200 yards down, I saw a sign. It's just signs that said, keep off. So I don't know whether they just were never taken down or whether they were, and then I thought I heard someone say that it might take, that may not be available for a while. So I don't know whether, I just wanted to ask. It's really just,
I'll find out.
it was just an observation.
I will find out.
Because I think it would be a nice thing that that could really enjoy.
It certainly hasn't been advertised as being open to the public.
Well, you know what? I'll talk to Dave. It seems to me like that would be a nice article or photograph to put in the Wakefield Daily Item. I'll find out the answers to your questions.
So what happens at the end of the Wakefield line? Where
It's
it
not at the end
crosses
of the
Wakefield?
Wakefield line. It's the other side of Salem Street. So once you cross over Salem Street, there's nothing. It's still the railroad tracks.
Okay.
So one can go from Salem Street down to the junior high school now, but
All right,
not
so-
north of Salem Street.
All right, so we know there's a lot more, there's still a
Yeah,
good chunk
everything
of
between
Wakefield.
Salem and Lowell Street that's not been touched, I believe.
Okay,
And
Or
then
at least it's not
Linfield has to act to build the trail and they're.
Okay, but nevertheless, just the portion that is finished from Salem Street to the junior high would certainly be something that could be, that people might enjoy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, I'm on my phone, so I can't see what's happening, but I appreciate whoever answered my question.
thank you,
by giving
Elaine.
me some specifics. Thank you, Elaine.
You're welcome.
All right, let's see, other business, Elaine, I still see we have 41 Coolidge Park tree removal.
Yes, Rebecca was supposed to have sent the photographs to you.
I'm sorry again. Why is there being a tree removed? Is it because it's dead or?
Yeah. That's right. I'm sorry. I should have spoken through the chair.
That's okay, Elaine. go ahead.
Sorry.
So we have a tree removal policy, Sasha, and if there are trees within our jurisdiction, we have a policy that is to be followed. So we do have tree removal requests come to us. And what happens is either Elaine or Rebecca will go out and, look at the situation to see what it looks like, take pictures, report back to us. Oftentimes a certified arborist would need to be involved. But tree removals in a jurisdictional area do fall under a policy that we have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Elaine, so what do you got on,
Well, I gave the information to Rebecca
yeah,
and she was supposed to have forwarded it to you, did she?
I am looking.
And then we
There
look at
should
that.
be 6 photographs and a letter from an arborist.
Uh,
Is that the one where the branches of the tree broke?
Yes. There's 2 trees.
Oh, there's only 2.
I'm still looking for the email.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the email either, so
I can't find it searching Coolidge Park.
yeah.
I didn't receive it.
All right, then I will have to ask Rebecca to forward it again, if you wouldn't mind rolling it over to the next meeting. I'm not sure why it didn't go through.
Yeah. All right. Do you have any other business, Elaine?
No.
Judy, do you have anything for us?
The open space is, I know I mentioned this about every meeting, but we're having our committee meeting on March 15th. And then there'll be a public forum after that. They're trying to balance it with the master plan meetings. So that's right around the corner.
Okay.
So get thinking about open space.
Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Hey Judy, did an invite go out for that or something?
No, I sent an email just to give everyone a heads up that it was going to happen, but the Zoom invite won't go out for a couple of weeks.
Okay, thank you.
But the email I sent has the open space inventory.
Okay.
So if you want to take a look at it, because there are some properties listed in the open space plan under conservation areas. And when you look at them in the assessor's mapping, it shows that conservation is, it's under their care and custody, but then when you reference the deed, that isn't the case. So I think there are a lot of, I'm gonna have to cross-reference all the properties, I think, that are listed. I just haven't had time to do that yet, because I think there are a lot of assumptions that they're conservation areas when they're not. You know, they were never formally put into the care and custody of the commission. Some of the parcels that they listed are actually tax title.
So was that list from us or did they come up with that list through their review?
No, it's in the current open space plan.
Okay.
So I already sent them some corrections that I found, but once I started to dig further last night, I should have thought to reference the deeds earlier. So I'm gonna have to cross-reference everything, I think, so it's a lot more accurate. So that sounds like a fun project, in case you're wondering.
Yeah, that's a lot of work, Judy.
Yeah, I'd rather have it clarified, because then people, you know, once they see it's conservation area, there's a different assumption. And I don't want people to
Right,
get
because
defeated.
right, it could be used for anything if it's owned by the
Yeah,
town.
yeah. Or if someone turns around and wants to buy a parcel and it kind of blows up in our face. But the trail steward, oh, that was one more thing. Tom Mullen got back to Rebecca and he looked at the way he is going to require a waiver. So I put together a draft and he approved it and sent it to Rebecca, and she didn't have time to send it before she went away. So that.
Of
what's that?
liability.
Liability.
To be the steward to
Oh.
walk the trails and check
Okay.
things out.
Judy,
Um,
are you a lawyer? You play a lawyer on TV, do you?
Only on Tuesdays. I audited a master's class in legal studies, so I think that makes me pretty qualified. That's what I'm using.
That gives you a master's degree, right?
Right, it's close. So the Environmental Sustainability Committee has some people who are interested. So I gave a draft of kind of a recruitment flyer that they can put on their website and ask them to send applications in to Rebecca's email address. So then you guys can look at them. And then if people have certain trails that they want to choose, then I think that'll be fine. But just so you're in the loop, because it'll be under the commission's umbrella.
That's so great, Judy.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good project. I'm hoping. Because it's actually, the city of Lawrence has a program. They have some state funding. They have funded funded positions. And they do a lot of stuff with youth groups and school information things. They have community gardens that they talk about ecology and why the environment is important. So I think it's something that could spur other aspects to get people's awareness about the environment on a broader course than it is currently. That's my hope. We'll see how that works out.
Do you have an idea if you're going to get a lot of kind of applications from the environmental sustainability side?
I think there'll probably be some, but it wouldn't be limited to just the people that they know. It's
Yeah.
anyone who would be interested.
Okay, well, let me know if you want me to do the scouts as well. Put it out there.
Yeah, and will there be like an item about it in the item, Judy?
Yeah, it'll be on the website and there'll probably be a posting in the item, you know, similar to when there's an opening.
Right.
Yeah, it'll be a similar. We're trying to get creative to get people interested who may want to be, you know, more committed to a time schedule rather than, you know, a one shot
Right.
deal. I think that'll be fun.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you, Bob. You did a great job tonight. Herding those cats.
Yeah, who's going to take the next one? March 7th.
Some of the public is still on the call, just so you know.
Yes, we can see.
Okay.
Anything else from anybody? Okay. So would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Second.
Haley, I got in front of you. Sorry.
That's okay. I just wanted that on record as my first official motion.
Okay. That's funny.
All right. All in favor? Haley,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
Ken,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Peter,
Yes.
Teresa,
Yes.
and I also vote to adjourn. Good night, everybody, and talk to you in a few weeks.
Nice seeing you,
Good
Elaine.
night.
Right.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Elaine.
You're welcome.